What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another Tuesday update. It is me, Eric Nilsson, the host of the Small Lake City podcast, and I have a lot of updates and even a new segment for you today. Now, first, if you haven't checked out the most recent episode with Natalie Parkin, make sure to check that out. I thought I was going to have a very different conversation, but she surprised me through and through. She's someone who has gone through a lot of experience in life, everything from having a teenage pregnancy to getting divorced twice by the time she's 22, to becoming a professional in IT, to eventually having the opportunity to own a skincare and esthetician school and taking it. So lots to learn from there. Great person, impacting the community. Also, I was pretty quiet last week. I was actually in Hawaii for a family trip. It was great to disconnect. I decided to really disconnect and really recharge and come back swinging. So I'm super excited to be back. We're going to have Tuesday update today. We're going to have Thursday newsletter. We're going to have an episode releasing this week that's going to be a unique one that I'm excited to tell you more about. But before we do, I want to tell you about a new segment I'm going to start doing on these Tuesday updates. And it's called Great Salt Takes. Now, what I want to do is review the last 7 days of what's happened around the area, any headlines, any trending articles, or things that we should be aware of, and give you the updates here. So let's get into it. So let's jump into the last week. So first thing that's probably already been all over your feed is the protests in downtown Salt Lake. Thousands of people showed up around the federal building after that awful story out of Minneapolis involving ICE and the killing of Alex Pretti. Marches blocked streets, State Street at a standstill, and there's been this real mix of grief, anger, and tension hanging over the city. You could feel it not just downtown, but bleeding into Park City as well during Sundance. And right on the heels of that, there was a lot of chatter about a local warehouse possibly becoming an ICE detention facility. That rumor moved fast, group chats, neighborhood threads, the whole thing. Turns out that's not happening. The owners came out pretty clearly saying they're not selling or leasing for that purpose, and they asked people to cool it a bit. Still, it says a lot about how raw this moment feels when a rumor like that can light up the entire city. And speaking of cities, let's talk about Park City, because right now Sundance is going on. And I'll keep talking about it because it's our festival, even as we're all wrapping our heads around the fact that it's the final year in Utah before the move to Colorado. The films are buzzing, Main Street is chaos in the only way Sundance chaos can be, and there's a lot of conversation about how hard it is to separate art from what's happening in the world right now. Protests, political conversations, even some behind-the-scenes drama with assaults at private events. It's messy, tense, and honestly kind of reflective of where Utah finds itself right now. One Sundance-specific thing that really caught people's attention this week, the Marquee in Park City had to cancel all of its shows tied to the festival. Fire and safety code issues, problems the venue had been told about months ago but never fixed, finally caught up with them. So suddenly, as everyone was getting ready, they were just gone. People were confused, frustrated, and scrambling for backups. It's one of those reminders that all the glamorous festival energy still depends on boring but important like safety compliance, especially when you've got thousands of people packed into town. So back in downtown Salt Lake City, the legislative session officially kicked off its sprint session, and already you can see where the pressure points are. Housing and education are front and center. Governor Spencer Cox, in his State of the State, doubled down on this idea that Utah won't be a state of renters, talking up zoning reform, infrastructure, and ways to get the housing built faster than we need. He also flagged early literacy and homelessness as priorities, which sounds great, but of course the details are where things get sticky. Because almost immediately there's been pushback over proposed cuts to early literacy software. Teachers and advocates are saying this is exactly the wrong moment to pull back resources, especially for schools already struggling to get kids reading at grade level. Meanwhile, lawmakers are juggling immigration issues, judicial tweaks, tax policy, the usual capital balancing act. So there's a lot of quiet negotiating and head-scratching happening right now. Another big political undercurrent this week, the effort to repeal Proposition 4. This is the voter-approved independent redistricting initiative from 2018. There's a push to get a repeal on the 2026 ballot, but the signature campaign is behind pace. Even with some national attention and high-profile encouragement, they're still short of where they need to be to meet the deadline. Now, it's fairly unanimous on this one. Most people want to have the maps drawn the way that we voted for it to have, and not just lawmakers reclaiming authority. Most view this as undoing something voters already decided. Either way, it's one of those quieter fights that could shape Utah politics for a long time if it ends up on the ballot. And because we all need at least one thing that's not heavy, Dino Fest is back at the Natural History Museum of Utah. If you've lived here long enough, you know how reliable Utah shows up for dinosaurs. It's wholesome, it's chaotic, in a kid energy way, and it's very on brand for us. Lastly, if you've heard people talking about the Great Salt Lake at Sundance, yeah, that's happening too. The documentary, The Lake, has been sparking real conversations about the future of the lake and what happens if we don't get serious about saving it. It's been interesting watching environmental urgency collide with the cultural spotlight of the festival. So that's the Great Salt Take for this week. Protests, policy, Sundance highs and lows, redistricting battles, and a whole lot more about what's going on around here. So this will be a regular I'm going to be doing every Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. And lastly, I want to announce this week's guest, or rather, this week's topic. Now, I mentioned when I first put out the trailer for the second season of Small Lake City that I was going to be doing something different, and this is that thing that's different. So instead of releasing an interview this week, I'm going to release an episode where I cover a topic, something very prevalent to Salt Lake. They'll be a little bit shorter, 20, maybe 30 minutes at most. And the topic that I've decided to cover first is the Queen of Salt Lake, Julia Reagan herself. So we'll talk a little bit more about who she is, how she ended up on all of these billboards, the lawsuit that her husband has with the University of Utah, and so much more. So that will be releasing this weekend, so keep an eye out for that. Don't forget to sign up for the Small Lake City newsletter. You can find the information in the show notes, or just go to smalllakepod.com and you can sign up for the newsletter there, so you never have to find out about something after someone's put it on their story, and you can find out yourself. So see you this weekend, and enjoy another good week in Small Lake City. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Small Lake City Podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, review, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends, and we'll catch you next week. We'll see you there.